Tonight, a North Alabama community coming together, pulling for the surviving victims of a deadly workplace shooting. How some of their friends are thinking of them as they recover in the hospital. And we're hearing from an employee at Mueller Water Products who was in the factory when a man opened fire, killing 2 of his co-workers and injuring 2 more. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dan Schaefer. The Albertville Police Department shared the identities of those victims with us. The chief said Michael Lee Dobbins and David Lee Horton died from their injuries. He said that to his knowledge, there are no family ties between the shooter, Andreas Horton, and the victim with the same last name. The injured employees are Isaac Bird and Casey Sampson. They're at a hospital in Chattanooga receiving treatment. We learned Bird, 21 years old, was shot multiple times in the back and is in serious condition. WAAY 31's Olivia Schuler is live in Albertville. She has details on the injuries that young man sustained when he was shot at that plant early this morning. Olivia?
Yeah, Dan, former co-workers of Isaac Bird say that he was shot multiple times in his shoulder. Now, earlier today, he did go through surgery, and right now we know that he's in serious condition. But all of those who have worked with Isaac in the past say they're remaining hopeful. They say he is a very special person.
And he really cared about his job, he cared about his work, and I'm sure that he did the same at Mueller.
Floyd Powell hired Isaac Bird after he graduated high school. Floyd says his work ethic was unmatched and he was quickly trained in all positions.
He loved particularly the dish area, for what reason I don't know. And Isaac actually won the first employee of the month, and it was because of his work ethic.
But it wasn't just his work ethic that stood out, it was his heart. He was
the type of person that even at late at night, you might get a text from him that says, Mr. Floyd, is there anything you want me that you need prayers about?
Aiden Jones goes to church with Bird. He says Bird's energy is infectious. Every time someone is around him, they can't help but smile and laugh.
He did not mind to pray for anybody at all. He cared for everybody.
And when Jones last spoke to Bird, he told him he really enjoyed working at Mueller.
He made some friends. Everybody liked him there too, of course.
Bird's heart of gold and love for others is something Jones says you don't find too often.
Every time he sees me, he gives me a hug, tells me he loves me.
Floyd says he's praying there is no permanent damage to Isaac Bird's upper body. They say his passion is playing for the drums on Sunday service. We will learn more about the other victims' conditions and bring you that information. Reporting live in Albertville, Olivia Schuler, WAAY 31 News.
Thanks, Olivia. And it didn't take long for us to see how dearly the victims of this shooting will be missed by the Albertville community. A passerby on the street told our reporter how much David Horton meant to him.
He was a very outgoing guy. He never met a stranger, was always laughing and smiling, and it's just truly sad to hear, especially about him, somebody that I really personally knew.
When Collins learned of Horton's passing, he was shocked. He says he just saw him at the grocery store a few months ago. We're getting an outpouring of reaction from people in the community who were touched by this tragedy, specifically, of course, the employees at the plant. WAAY 31's Nicole Zedek spoke to an employee who was friends with one of the victims.
All is quiet here at the Mueller plant in Albertville. Quite a different scene than 19 hours earlier when police from 3 different police agencies rushed here for a mass shooting call. A call that shocked the hundreds of employees who work here.
So I was just coming into work. Just like a normal day.
That's when Cody Windsor heard the news. There was an active shooter at his workplace.
I had a lot of messages from people that worked here telling me that some people in a foundry got shot. And
his friend was one of 2 people killed by the gunman.
I didn't find out later until my friend David Horton, he was shot, and I got home. I actually started crying. It really it just hit me like that.
His workplace forever changed by one violent action.
You're always going to have that on your mind, thinking that there's going to be somebody going to walk in the door and shoot you. You never know.
Windsor said he and his colleagues bond over their work and have a real sense of community, making this violent incident even more difficult to understand. Reporting in Albertville, Nicole Zedek, WAAY 31 News.
According to entries on the job site Indeed.com, the Mueller Company Foundry receives high marks for pay and benefits. One employee wrote, quote, "Employees there are a family and work as a team." The company has produced millions of fire hydrants since they moved to Marshall County in 1975. It's one of the county's largest employers. The city of Albertville is even called the fire hydrant capital of the world. We received a statement from Mueller today after the shooting. It reads in part, quote, "Our hearts are with the victims and their loved ones, the Albertville community and the entire Mueller family during this extremely difficult time. Our entire focus is on the health and well-being of our colleagues, and we are committed to providing any and all support to them and their families." Albertville Mayor TRACY HONEA also released a statement saying in part, quote, "Our heart is breaking today after the senseless tragedy that has taken place at Mueller Company in Albertville. Mueller has been an integral part of the lifeblood and workforce of this city for just shy of 50 years. Thanks to them, Albertville is not only the heart of Sand Mountain, but is also proudly known as the fire hydrant capital of the world." Over the next few days, local and state agencies will work with the FBI to try to determine a motive behind today's tragedy. The Albertville police chief said he expects the Mueller plant to be closed during that time while investigators process the scene. They'll also talk to witnesses, including the 2 people who were injured in the shooting.
We've got a lot of preliminary information. May have to step back and take a breath and see what the next step is.
The police chief said they would search the shooter's house once they got a search warrant. We reached out to see if that's happened yet. We're waiting to hear back. Here's what we know about the shooter so far. 34-year-old Andreas Horton does have a history with police, but they told us it wasn't anything that raised any red flags. The Albertville police chief told us it was, quote, traffic tickets and such. Right now, it appears the shooting was completely unprovoked. Horton has no history of problems with other employees, but today, for as yet still unknown reasons, he shot 2 people to death, injured 2 others before taking his own life. As we reflect on our own local tragedy involving gun violence, it's on the rise nationwide. Just this last weekend, at least 4 major cities reported a mass shooting. According to data from the Gun Violence Archive, almost 9,000 people have been killed in gun violence related to homicide or murder this year. And there have been 275 mass shootings and 15 mass murders in 2021. Law enforcement noticed a pattern of increased shootings as the country opened up after the pandemic. A recent North Alabama victim of a national mass shooting was Cullman County native Josh Pinkard. Pinkard grew up in Holly Pond. He worked as the plant manager for Henry Pratt, a company which is actually owned by Mueller. His wife said he texted her to tell her he loved her after he was shot. Pinkard worked at the Mueller plant in Albertville before moving to Illinois. He is survived by his wife and children. Family and friends of Michael Lee Dobbins set up a GoFundMe page to help his family with funeral and other expenses. According to the page, Dobbins had a wife and young daughter. So far, more than $2,000 has been raised. One of the organizers of the fundraiser, Veda Buchanan, told Way 31 Dobbins had a way of making everyone feel comfortable. She messaged us saying, quote, "If something was bothering him, you would never know it. He was just concerned with making anyone and everyone smile. He was just one of the few good people left." We've been on top of this story, of course, since it broke this morning. We'll stay on top of it overnight. Way 31 News in the morning as well. Pat Simon, Marie Waxel, Rob Elvington will bring you live team coverage as well as the latest developments on this evolving story. Way 31 Morning News starts tomorrow at 4:30. Well, the humidity's out of the way. Heat's kind of sticking around, although it's a nice mild evening, kind of picture perfect for a June day here in North Alabama. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna. Kate?
Yeah, temperatures a little bit all over the place right now, but I want to point out something that is a little unusual for this time in mid-June, and that's temperatures in the mid-60s already this evening. We're at 66 degrees in Athens and in Fayetteville. Still nice and warm in Huntsville, 74 degrees at 73 in Muscle Shoals. 65 right now in Fort Payne. That's the coolest spot on the board, and we've still got the rest of the night to go when it comes to actually reaching our low temperature. All across North Alabama, we've got a mostly clear sky. It's nice and quiet on the Way 31 Storm Tracker early warning radar network. Muscle Shoals, Decatur, Gunnersville, each one of those 3 radars giving us a nice clear scan. With temperatures falling into the lower 60s by early tomorrow morning, it's a great night to open the windows, give the AC a little bit of a break. That is, if you're not an allergy suffer. That's always the thing that I have to decide. Do I want to wake up in the morning suffering from allergy symptoms, or do I want to enjoy the nice cool weather? That's the choice for you to make by early tomorrow morning. It is going to be nice and cool, but by the afternoon, we're going to be back in the upper 80s. Sunny and warm, but nice and dry. And I say dry in the sense that humidity is low again tomorrow. Wind still out of the north, 5 to 10 miles per hour. These temperatures, they're going to stick around for one more day, and then we're going to be back into the 90s by the time we hit the end of the week, but it's only temporary. We'll have a drop by the weekend, but it's also going to coincide with some tropical moisture heading our way. I'm tracking exactly that coming up.
Fallout from a microchip shortage that's wreaking havoc on global manufacturing has made its way into North Alabama. Now it's impacting small businesses here in Huntsville.
Coverage you can count on. You're watching Way 31 News at 10 with the Way 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network.
Three, two, one. Marking 21 years of Minotaur launches and 15 years of partnership with NASA Wallops Flight Facility in mid-Atlantic. Two, one.
NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia helped launch that Minotaur 1 rocket today. NASA called it a blink and you might miss it launch. You're watching the quick liftoff now. The rocket carried 3 national security payloads for the National Reconnaissance Office. That's the Department of Defense agency responsible for operating the U.S. intelligence satellites. New at 10, police are investigating after a man found injured in a North Huntsville motel later died. Huntsville police say 39-year-old Joe Harris was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. He did later die. He was found about 5:30 this morning at the Budgetel Inn on Memorial Parkway Northwest. Information about a possible suspect has not been released yet. If you have any information, you're encouraged to call the Huntsville Police Department. We'll stay on top of this story and bring you any updates as new information comes to light. Right now, Decatur Fire and Rescue says they're on the scene of an explosion and fire at an industrial building. It's happening in the 300 block of Beltline Northwest. Crews ask you to slow down if you're driving in that area. We're working to learn more about what's going on there. We'll keep you posted as we do. The Madison County Assistant District Attorney tells Way 31 testimony in the trial for a Madison County mass murder suspect begins mid-next week. Today and tomorrow, attorneys for Christopher Henderson are reviewing questionnaires from jurors. People will be back in the courtroom Thursday morning. Henderson is facing 19 counts of capital murder after officials say he killed his second wife, her unborn child, along with her 8-year-old son, mother, and 1-year-old nephew. Today, the youngest person in Alabama to be sentenced to life in prison without parole asked a judge to reconsider that sentence. Evan Miller was 14 years old when he murdered Cole Cannon in Lawrence County in 2003. In a motion for a new trial, Miller asks the court to, quote, vacate his life without parole sentence and impose a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. He claims the ruling violates the Constitution, state, and federal law. This comes after Miller's case went to the Supreme Court in 2012 when the court allowed all juveniles sentenced to life without parole to be resentenced. A judge, though, upheld the original sentencing. A global microchip shortage threatens to cause problems manufacturing everything from cars to refrigerators. The manager of a Huntsville appliance store told us he's seeing major delays in getting products from manufacturers so he can get them to customers. The delays aren't the only impact. The shortage is beginning to drive up prices on ranges, dishwashers, televisions, and more.
We as a company have just kept our pricing steady throughout this, and we're trying really hard to do that. But manufacturers are starting to feel the squeeze, and you're going to start seeing prices rise just like you did with lumber.
Swain says if you're building or renovating your home or just planning to upgrade your appliances, the sooner you put in your order, the better. He says we could be seeing the impacts of the chip shortage for months to come. New at 10, the TSA will perform a security evaluation of the Colonial Pipeline next month. Colonial was in the process of scheduling the review just as it was hit with a crippling ransomware attack last month. In the review, the TSA will make sure Colonial's systems and security services are, quote, designed, built, and operated in a reliable and resilient manner. Firefighters in Illinois are now getting help from out of state to fight a massive fire at a chemical plant. A grease factory in Rockton has been burning since yesterday. The local fire chief says they are working to protect a nearby river from chemicals before they start spraying more water on the fire. That includes digging a trench between the factory and the river. The chief says if they do nothing, the factory could continue burning for up to 7 more days. A mandatory evacuation zone within a mile of that facility remains in place.
Weather coverage you can count on with Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna and the Way 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network.
Well, Huntsville may still be in the mid-70s, but many spots across North Alabama have already cooled into the 60s. Some spots like Fort Payne were in the mid-60s, but at 67 right now, in Decatur 69, and Florence 68 in Scottsboro. Just for reference, Huntsville is at 74 degrees. And look at the difference from this same time yesterday. That's almost a 10-degree drop in Fayetteville and Muscle Shoals, 7 degrees cooler in Huntsville and Decatur, only 6 degrees cooler in Fort Payne, and it's going to be even cooler still by the time we wake up on your Wednesday. We don't have to worry about rain, though, at any point tonight or tomorrow, or for Thursday and Friday for that matter. It does change by the weekend, and we'll get to that in just a second, but here's your view across the Way 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network. Not picking up anything right now around Muscle Shoals, nice and quiet around Decatur, and we have no rain showing up in Gunnersville either. As we go through tonight, 61 degrees is your forecast low. Yes, it's well below average. Yes, it is comfortably cool for a brief time tomorrow morning. We do start to warm quickly because there's lots of sunshine in your forecast, and that north wind keeps the drier air filtering in, and it keeps the cooler air heading our way. Here's what we've got in store here through the rest of tonight into early tomorrow morning. And I've stopped this particular data source. You know, I showed you the forecast low there at 61 degrees. This data source says some spots can get as cool as the mid 50s, 55 degrees in Florence, 57 in Decatur. I don't think we'll be quite that cool for most of us. And once we get into tomorrow afternoon, yes, we do start to warm very quickly with all that sunshine. And this particular data source again says highs mainly in the low to mid 80s. Well, today we made it into the upper 80s. I think we will do the same tomorrow, but it's going to be a comfortable high in the upper 80s because of this lower relative humidity, drier air in place. That trend holds strong through tonight, through tomorrow night, all the way into Thursday. We don't start to see the return of the humidity until we get closer to the weekend, and we'll see that shift in wind, and we'll have some tropical moisture heading our way. But for the time being, great car wash weather. You're going to get your money's worth here for the next few days. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, if you decide to do it, I think you might want to hold off by the weekend because we are bringing the rain back into the forecast. For the time being, this still doesn't look like much here in the Gulf of Mexico. When I talk about tropical moisture, this is what I'm referencing. We still have this area of interest from the National Hurricane Center. The update from 7 p.m. still gives this an 80% chance for tropical development in the next 5 days. This risk area hasn't really changed very much and does extend all the way up into really the western Gulf and parts of the northern Gulf, coastal Louisiana. So watch what happens here with this particular data source. This is what I've been showing you. This area of low pressure shifting toward the north here, starting to get a little more organized. We're still very uncertain because the data sources don't have a lot of agreement here, but it's to exactly the strength and location where this is going to be over the weekend. What we do see here is the general trend that, yes, we can see some rain heading our way for North Alabama, and we can also see the wind picking up with this. Exact impacts we're still yet to nail down. I just want you to be aware of the fact that as we get into Father's Day and Father's Day weekend, if you've got outdoor plans, you may want to have a contingency just in case, because we are looking pretty wet for Sunday and for Monday. Right now, it's just a 50-50 shot at rain and storms. Just to know that those percentages can change in the coming days too.